The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Wednesday, and you know I love Wednesday because we have a lot going on. We're going to be joined in just a minute by Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh for our segment Ask Dr. Doreen. But before we do that, I want to remind you that this entire show is meant to be interactive, and Emily is showing you right now on the screen all the different ways that you can interact with us. Also, though, on our live feature, which you can only find at www.autism-live.com, you'll see a box there that says questions we're answering right now. If you put your cursor there and start to type and hit enter, it will show up magically right here on my screen in real time, and I will be able to ask your question. Lovely, lovely feature that we have. It is totally free. You do not have to log in. There is no credit card, cachet. There's nothing at all. It's totally free. I hope that you will participate because we are here to provide information and in a format that is accessible to everyone. So without further ado, it is time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism, and now you get to ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome back. This is Ask Dr. Doreen, and our special guest in the studio with us right now is Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure.
Somebody was asking this morning about what it's like being able to sit and talk with you for this hour, and I said it's amazing.
It's so fun
I
for
learned
me.
so much from the questions that you guys ask and the way that you answer them. It's really helping me to be a better parent, and I really appreciate that.
I appreciate that, but it's also a lot of fun for me, and I love the feedback we get from the parents. It just keeps me going.
It is wonderful. And we somebody sent us a picture that we were just admiring here in the studio, thanking us for the help that you were able to give. And if you've gotten some helpful information here and you want to send your picture, we do hang them in the studio, and it means a great deal to us. And I want to start by reminding everybody that while Dr. Granpeesheh will be answering some questions, we always want to make sure that we let you know that we're never going to be giving child-specific advice. That would be a great disservice to any of our children. Our kids are all different, and what you guys write into Dr. Granpeesheh, while you might be very detailed, it still couldn't possibly give her enough information to give child-specific advice.
Yeah, it's really not possible to do that here. We just don't have enough time, and we don't know the kids. Yeah. But yeah, we'll just answer the questions in generality. But
it's still so very helpful, and we appreciate you taking the time to do that.
And I also want to thank Julie Matthews, who was here last week.
Yes.
And I just thought that it was so wonderful having her here and her expertise, and I'm pretty sure her answers must have helped a lot of people as well.
Absolutely, and really a momentous occasion for all of us parents to have a person of your expertise in the field of ABA sit and talk with somebody who is an expert in the nutrition field was really enlightening.
Yeah, I love doing that with Julie. It helps a lot for some of our kids. I mean, in general, Shannon, I like doing that when there's a nutritionist involved. Yeah. As well as when there's a physician involved, because I think we cover a lot more. Speech pathologists, OTs, I think we just cover, so much more as a whole. So
absolutely.
That's good.
And I so respect that you are open to those other interventions working with what you do, and that you talk freely about how pairing these things together is so successful. I think that's a rarity in the field of autism, and I hope more people take a page out of your book and get with the program about that our kids, they're whole human beings that need lots of different things.
Right. On both sides, I think behaviorists generally don't really have a lot of enthusiasm, let's put it that way, for other professionals. And at the same time, I think physicians also don't have a lot of understanding of what we do as behaviorists, and so you can almost say there's not respect on both sides. So there needs to be, though, because we end up doing better work when we work as a team.
Yeah, and the kids make more progress.
Definitely.
So hopefully more people will buy a vowel and be like you.
I hope so.
We hope so. I also have to start the show by asking you, the CDC came out with some new numbers on a different scale than what they previously have given out, that these were for school-aged children, and the incidence that we found in the United States for school-aged children, I believe their age range was from 6 to 16. I
think they measured 8th graders, didn't they? I'm not sure now because I don't remember. I read it last week. But
and I have it here somewhere. I should pull it up.
Yeah.
But 1 in 50 were the numbers that they came out with.
Right.
Now, we're not 100% sure that the CDC is going to adopt these numbers as opposed to the 1 in 88, but no matter how you look at it, it's concerning.
It's frightening.
Yeah.
It's frightening. It's funny because someone asked me just the same day that the article had come out, someone said, what do you think about this? And I really had to stop for a moment and actually think about it. And I realized that I felt, having gone through this process for 30 plus years, I remember when the prevalence rate was 1 in 15,000, and I remember thinking this is a very focused group, let's say, and there's not a lot of children that we work with and all that sort of stuff. And then before you know it, it just became higher, and as you know, we've every year now, like 1 in 150, 1 in 110, 1 in 80. I don't know. It just keeps.
Yes.
And so now when you look at 1 in 50, if it's really accurate, because and I don't know that the CDC will adopt this right now. I think they probably want to do some more measures. But it is, if I had to pick one word or 2 words to define this, how I feel, I would say sad and scared.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, it's sad that it just keeps increasing.
Yeah.
We all know, I feel that it is really just because we have such a toxic world. Scared because that really means that, I can't even begin to comprehend this. Like 1 in 50 children will have autism. That's just unbelievable for the future as well. Not just the fact that we're already overloaded and overwhelmed and no one is prepared to deal with this type of thing at this rate, but also for the future when you think about it. These are the kids and the future generations, and it's just scary.
It's very scary. And it's been very interesting to me over the last week. Everybody that I've talked to, I've said, what was your first impression? And to hear everybody's first impressions. And then the follow-up question was, what's your immediate gut reaction that needs to happen as a result of this new number?
There's so many things that need to happen.
And that's been it's been so interesting hearing everybody's responses, and I've gone, yes, you're right, that needs to happen, and they've all been different.
Really? Yeah, that's a very interesting question. From my perspective, I can immediately list out about 20 different things that need to happen, but I would have to prioritize and say, I guess the first thing that needs to happen is just more funding for treatment.
Yeah.
Because these children, I guess maybe that has something to do with my experience, my own personal experience. And I think the saddest thing for me is that I have contact with so many families that are coming in or trying to come in, and they have so many issues with funding and coverage. And aside from the fact that, of course, we have to do more research, we have to look at toxins, we have to standardize diets, we have to understand more about the biochemistry of these kids, we have to look at all these different factors. But having said all that, it just I can't understand how I would handle it if it was me and I had a child who needed a service, and I could even have insurance coverage, but I couldn't afford the copays,
right.
Which is happening to so many parents right now. Or I had all the funds, but I couldn't get in to a treatment. So it's just, and my fear, Shannon, is what I'm already seeing is that this is increased demand for treatment, and as demand goes up, providers just get out there and they're not quality providers.
Yeah.
So it's just the whole thing is kind of becoming beyond the scope of being able to handle. So that's what I'm concerned about is like we really do need to put more funding into quality service because it's out of control.
Yeah.
I also think teachers need more training. Because they are a very big resource for this field. I also think people need to work better together in multidisciplinary teams. It's crazy.
It is endless. I keep thinking, like in a lot of things, well, someday we'll arrive.
Right.
We'll get there. And we arrive in little bits and pieces, but there's so much more work to be done.
There's another wave.
Yes. A new problem crops up.
Right.
The copay issue. We needed the insurance, and now the copay has become an issue for families.
Meanwhile, another issue that's cropping up is the fact that kind of the baby boom generation of autism is hitting adulthood. Yeah. And there's nothing out there. Yeah. There are so many teenagers that really have no programs. We're really working hard to try to develop CARD 2 and help those guys. We have a lot of them now, but honestly, there's just nothing for... Once you pass a certain age, things become hugely different and more difficult.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have had many people write in and say, when will that CARD 2 be available? So people are hanging on the ends of their seats
we have it going right now. Our staff are trained, and we actually have, I think, over probably, I would say, maybe 40 or so adults right now that we're treating.
But in a format that people can get it around the world is what they're asking.
That would be the skills program or a second version of skills, which that's hard to do because I mean, skills, if you think about it, really took about 15 years or so to develop. And I don't know, some of the ideas that I've had which would be easier ways to get things out are just to have some of our supervisors who are very, very good with our older population come in and do very specific video trainings that like IBT formats sort of, and just put those out there right away on IBT's website because our supervisors are a wealth of knowledge. I mean, they are so experienced and they have so many different things that they know how to do. And I think it would be fantastic for them to do little segments on different things. Another idea I had was just a lot of parents come to us and ask for help with just social things, like what do I do if my child's tantruming at a restaurant, or those types of things. Those would be easy things to produce videos on. And as you know, I think you already know, I had asked Nick, one of our recovered kids, to come in and talk about how he learned various social skills that were hard for him over time. I think he's doing that pretty soon, recording with you guys.
He's going to be on the show here with us on Friday. So I don't know if they've arranged other time for him, but that will be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that we can do now that, given that we have the resources here in the studio. I just want to get this information out to parents.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Very exciting. Okay, our first question that we have, it's a broad question. You ready? What type of biomedical interventions help kids with autism? Oh. How's that for broad?
Wow.
Yeah.
So, gosh, there's a lot.
Yes.
So I guess the best way to answer that is I would start with assessing the child, because you really want to identify biochemical, dietary, nutritional deficiencies or excesses. Biochemistry, sometimes you're just excessive across some measure. So some of the things that we've found with our kids, there are kids who are, of course, a large number of kids actually are, I don't want to say allergic, but not able to digest certain nutrients, like for instance gluten, casein, corn, soy, food additives, food colorings, all of those types of things. So a specialized diet would be one that's pretty important, I think. You have to really determine what that would be for your child.
Because our kids are all different, right?
Very different.
And it can be a very different thing from one child to another.
Very different, completely different. There are several diets. I mean, we just talked about restrictive diets like the gluten casein-free diet or soy and corn-free. But then there's also the specific carbohydrate diet. I mean, there's a lot of different diets, and you really have to look into and see which one works for your child. So dietary intervention. Some of the kids have really pretty significant candida issues, yeast, fungal issues, and those children would benefit from both a restriction on things that cause increased growth of fungus, like sugar and so on, but also antifungal medications. A lot of kids do much better with nystatin, Nizoral, any of the antifungal medications. So that would be something to look at. Then, of course, some of the kids have other more serious issues that are happening, just gastrointestinal inflammation type stuff that needs medication that will help it. So that's a whole different area, is just GI treatments as a whole. I mean, GI treatments actually for some of our more severe kids can go as far as liquid diet, so that the kids are actually taken off all foods and they go through and drink certain liquids that are kind of like protein shakes, and that kind of clears out their system and helps them to establish probiotic health.
And that's just for a period of time, not a liquid diet forever.
For a period of time, right. Of course, with some of our more severe children who have really severe aggressive issues or behaviors, sometimes the answer is to work with an antipsychotic medication like Risperdal, just be able to calm the child down a little bit and then teach appropriate skills, and then you can get the child off of those medications. Some of our kids have so much inflammation, both GI and or brain inflammation, that they do very well on steroids. It's across the board. A lot of our kids have severe anxiety, and in those cases they do very well with antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications like SSRIs or SNRIs. Some of our kids have really significant hyperactivity, and they do well with some of the stimulant medications. It really, I'm open to looking at those things when I see that other interventions don't work. Well, sometimes when we're working with a child and we're trying very hard to get something under control, it might not happen. Anxiety is a good example of that. And research does show that the combined medical and behavioral treatment has a much more significant effect than one or the other. So, I think people need to be open to those ideas and try to help. All you're doing, I think, with medications is giving your child a few more tools.
And I'm guessing that Key is working with a professional who really has an understanding of what's happening in the field of autism.
Yes, I think so. Although you have some professionals that are really good outside the field as well, in terms of, like, for instance, GI doctors and so on. As long as the one problem I find outside the field, and more people are becoming educated now, but one of the things I find that's disturbing outside the field of autism is that if you go to a, let's say, gastroenterologist and you say my child has autism, but at the same time they can see from a scope or just from symptoms that your child has pretty serious GI issues, sometimes I've heard parents tell me that the doctor will say, oh, but that's just part of the autism.
Yes, we hear that a lot.
Yeah, and that kind of thing is very disturbing because it really has nothing to do with it. I mean, it might be causing it actually, but in terms of symptomology, you can't let the autism overshadow some sort of medical problem, which is very serious. I just remembered now to answer the question again, sleep disorders. A lot of kids have sleep disorders, so melatonin or some other form of sleep aid is very helpful.
And the methylation stuff, we haven't talked about that.
Oh, of course, the methylation. Well, I mean, the whole concept with kids having, those kids who have high oxidative stress, they're low methylators, which essentially means they're detoxifying slower than they should be. Those children obviously may, and you have to test this, benefit from some methyl B12 or some medications that help methylation. So there's a whole variety. The MAPS group, as we've said before, are people who are a little bit more trained in the field of the specific issues that relate to autism. But, again, I have to tell parents, you are the parent.
Yeah.
You need to, and it is a very unusual field. You can't go into this field fully trusting anyone, I say.
Yeah, I agree.
Because years ago, as you know, and I think still today, a lot of parents, when they go to their pediatrician or someone who diagnoses the child, they might tell them, oh, this is, your child's never going to talk, your child's never going to function normally. All that sort of stuff still happens to this day. And these are extremely well-known, respected, reputable professionals saying these things. So you just have to be careful as a parent, because the same thing goes with the treatments. When someone tells you something and it just doesn't quite fit into your understanding or thinking, ask questions, research it, ask other people, try to understand the reasoning behind it. A lot of, my son the other day had to, his orthodontist was saying he has to have his wisdom teeth pulled because it's blocking his back molars. And I wasn't really convinced until I saw the x-rays. I mean, just ask questions and make sure it makes sense to you.
I agree. And I think, too, if your questions aren't received well,
then there's something wrong.
Right.
Or not answered well.
Right.
So sometimes people answer your questions and you right away know you have a better understanding than they do.
Yes.
So those are the things I think that are important.
Yeah. I'm somebody who has to ask a lot of questions.
Terrific.
There was one doctor that we had talked to, and everyone in the office and the doctor said, this is not going to be a good fit for us because you're going to ask too many questions. You're going to drive me crazy. And I really kind of appreciated that. Right. And then went to a doctor who enjoys that I ask a bunch of questions.
Absolutely.
It's a better fit for me.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I'm one of those people that really enjoys questions from parents, because that's why I'm doing this show, first of all. But because I think we figure it out together. I think we learn. My job is not to convince anyone of anything. Right. I have some ideas of why I think a certain child would be behaving a certain way, and sometimes parents will tell me things that completely open my eyes to something else. Yeah. And I'm always learning from my parents, and I always feel like the parents know their kids better than I do, for sure. And so it's always important to listen. At the same time, I know that there are sometimes parents who come to me who will have, for instance, the idea that we will just take care of the child and they don't have to do anything else. Right. And I feel that's the type of parent that wouldn't really do well at CARD, for instance, because we really do want our parents to manage, be aware, be involved, be trained, all of that. And I absolutely don't expect every parent to be able to do that. I don't think I would be able to do as much as a lot of our parents do. But I know that the parents who do get very involved with us are the ones that are successful. Yeah. So I will tell people at intake that, you seem very hesitant about ABA still. I'll even suggest they go and, for instance, see some other parents or see some cases that are being run right now so that they can see what it looks like. I want them to really understand that we're going to be in their life for a while and intrusive for a while. Yes. So it's what the real definition of informed consent is, for parents to truly understand what is being suggested before they accept it.
Wonderful. I think that's a really important comment. Okay. A really long question here that I'm going to read through. Hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. What are the most typical symptoms that our kids would display to show reactions to sugar versus reactions to other food allergies versus reactions to digestive problems? I never know what in the world is causing my son to go out of control. I see him acting out by giggling nonstop, talking silly, all TV talk, hand clapping, not being able to self-control at all. Sometimes the behavior stops on its own. Other times he poops and he's fine afterwards. Mm-hmm. Very interesting information. I am truly clueless what is causing this almost once a day daily behavior. It's like he's drunk and can't be reasoned with. He is 11 and mainstreamed. Any advice? Thanks.
Yes, and obviously I have to kind of say, all of this medical and nutritional is not really my area, but from what I've learned, when I hear parents say drunk as a descriptor, I definitely want to screen for yeast. Yes. And as we talked about it last week as well with Julie, I do see a lot of our kids where you can't really pick an antecedent or something that seems to be causing it. That there's yeast issues, fungal issues, and then as Julie also mentioned, sometimes it's just high amounts of yeast, sometimes it's yeast die-off after you've been on antifungals, so it's hard to tell. Yeah. But that seems to be something important to check. Yeah. A lot of times you will find that there's yeast issues, especially if the child feels better right after having had a bowel movement. It could be yeast. Now, the other things to consider, if the child feels better after having had you need to track some of these things. If there's usually a bowel movement happening right at the end of the silly period, then the silly period could actually just be a behavioral reaction to the child feeling that they have to have a bowel movement and trying to control it. Okay. And so a lot of kids do that, not just on our spectrum, but they start to act kind of a little bit out of control or wild or whatever when they are trying to hold back having a bowel movement. You see this also with kids with encopresis, just holding bowel movements. Another thing, of course, is they could be just having GI pain, so because it's somewhat related to bowel movements, that would be important. Sugar, yes, can cause hyperactivity, not just in our kids, but across the board. Yeah. But I don't know that it can cause complete hyperactivity to the point where the child's laughing, giggling, and you can't really get them to stop and all that sort of stuff. I would honestly say the best thing to do for this parent is to have a series of tests done. First of all, identify allergies, right? You could be having some foods or other products in his environment, your child's environment, that are causing some sort of a, I don't want to say allergic, but sensitive reaction in the child. Identify those. And then start dropping some of those items, like for instance sugar. Eliminate sugar for a little bit or reduce it significantly for maybe a week. And then see if there's any difference in the rate of these types of silly behaviors. Talk to someone, a physician or a nutritionist, who can give you advice on some of the other symptoms associated with fungal. Sometimes with the fungal yeast issues, you have rashes on the arms. Your child's a little bit older, so it might not really show. Right. But I would say those are the two areas. Look at the diet and look at fungus.
Absolutely. Yeah. Really interesting information. And I've shared before on the show that Jem, we cycle through yeast issues. But when he was little, it was really pretty severe. And we eventually went through a bunch of dietary changes and then eventually did a diflucan run. And you mentioned the die-off thing, and I think it's so important to talk about that because I had this expectation that he was going to be better overnight. That it was just going to be, my little drunken elf was going to walk straight and talk, and things were going to change. Yeah. And we had die-off, and I didn't really have a clear idea of what that was going to look like. And it took, I think it was exactly 28 days. Wow. I have a diary somewhere because I was losing my mind during those 28 days because it got worse.
Very important stuff you're saying here.
And it got infinitely worse, and I thought, what have we done? He's having a reaction to the medicine, and our doctor said, you're going to have to hang. He said, give it at least 15 days.
Wonderful.
But then when 15 days it was still there, he said, this was tough yeast. You got to give me another 15 days.
And how long did he stay on the diflucan during this time?
He, it's been a while now. So it was like he cycled on for maybe 10 days and then off for 10 days and then on again. It was something like that. It's in the diary. But what happened, we were in the second 15 days and we were getting close to that 30-day mark. And we went on a little trip and I got to see family members and I was in tears saying, my child has had so much improvement and you're not going to see it because he's a little off right now. And we got back from the trip and it was about 4 days before kindergarten was starting. And I woke up one morning to a different child. Yeah. And it was amazing because I didn't realize how busy my child was until I saw him still.
Yep.
And
Amazing.
he was still, and he looked at me and he talked to me. And I remember it literally brought me to my knees, and I just cried and I held him and I woke my husband up and said, okay,
stopped.
this is it.
Yeah,
this is the thing that we, have been waiting for that I didn't think was going to come.
Amazing.
And it truly was a different child.
That's incredible. And what you just said is so important for parents to hear, because very often the die-off is such a negative reaction that people just can't handle it. And Absolutely.
I was.
I mean, most of the time. Because you have to, I think most of the people out there will realize that as it is, it's so intense. That's why you start the medication, and then it doubles up.
Yes.
And then you're like, oh my God, how am I going to handle this? So let's say that you really need to just commit a month of your life to this.
Yeah.
And it is truly a fabulous way to tell whether or not your child has yeast issues, because you will actually see you might, and sometimes you don't see that die-off experience, but it is one of the more drastic changes. It does fungal stuff. Once you treat it, it does produce a pretty significant change. I mean, I actually have data on some of our kids where their rate of learning just sped up because once they started medications.
Oh, yeah.
So this particular, either diflucan or nizoral, or...
And I'm sure that was the case for Jem. Somewhere you have all of his papers in a storage facility somewhere.
Yes.
But I remember that it just
changed
shot
drastically,
up.
right.
It was an amazing difference,
Right.
and his the rate of acquisition, he was just flying through things.
Absolutely.
Crazy
so
good.
those are things so important to take care of.
Yes, absolutely. Now, the mom who had asked that question wrote in some follow-ups and said, he will also squeeze my hand with a look of pain on his face when he's going through these reactions. And then also added, he also takes human growth hormones too, so I never know if that could possibly be causing issues that he is unable to communicate to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the side effects of HGH for a child of this age. If you say that he's squeezing your hand sort of as if in pain, it makes me wonder if he's going through some gastrointestinal issues that he's not able to vocalize, and then he has relief once he's had a bowel movement. I would really think about, having a GI doc look at him and figure out if he has any inflammatory issues that need to be dealt with.
And somebody else wrote in and said, I've never heard of the medication you're talking about. How is it spelled? I'm assuming the medication, the diflucan, but we mentioned nizoral and nystatin. And diflucan is, I believe it's
DIFLUCAN.
Yeah.
But you can actually look up antifungal medications online, and you'll see a whole array of them.
Yeah.
And then you can read more about it and talk with a physician.
Absolutely. And they're it's not like they're new medicines.
Not at all.
A lot of women are prescribed these kinds of things if they have a yeast infection.
Infections, absolutely right. And actually, nystatin is given to children as young as newborns. When a newborn potentially has thrush, their tongue becomes white, and they give you, some of you will have had that experience, and they will give you a liquid that you pour in the child's mouth when they're an infant, when they're like a month old. And that's nystatin. That's antifungal.
Right. But again, these are all prescription medicines that have to be prescribed by a doctor. You need to be monitored if you're on them to see if there are other complications as well. So you want to keep that in mind. Okay, we're going to take a short break and come back more with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. If you have questions, now's a great time to put them in on our live feature, www.autism-live. Yes, I'll get a brain while we're in a break. So we'll be back after these messages. Stick with us. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live. As the mom of a young man on the autism spectrum, I frequently look to the world and hope for compassion. Well, recently I told my son that he should treat others the way he wants them to treat him. That's when I realized that it's high time that I start walking my talk. This April, for Autism Awareness Month, Autism Live is asking everyone to perform an act of compassion. Do something nice for someone else. That's why I've decided to shave my head to show support for a young dad who's fighting brain cancer.
how will you show your compassion? Compassion is a tool of change, but only when we take action. How we treat others teaches them how to treat us in return. This April, the autism community has the ability to lead by example by putting compassion in action. This can be a small act or a large one. It can be close to home or towards someone on the other side of the planet. If we all perform an act of compassion, who knows? We might just change the world. Get involved and show us your compassion in action on Facebook.com/autismlive. And tune in on April 8th to watch me shave my head live on the air. We are not powerless. We can create change. Compassion in action.
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. We have with us Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, a true visionary in the field of autism, an expert you've been working in this field for, I really hate to say it because otherwise no one would know, but 3 decades?
Yeah, more than 3 decades.
Okay, you really can't tell people more than 3 decades.
It's true.
They won't believe you. They'll think you were walking around in diapers treating children on the autism spectrum.
I was lucky because I started college early and ended up being with Professor Lovas right off the bat. So I started my very first year working with kids with autism when nobody even knew what autism is.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And now we have your great expertise with us, and you can ask questions. I kind of muffled the site to go to, but go to www.autism-live.com. That's where you want to go and ask questions. Now, we had a question come in during the break. Hey, Shannon and Dr. Doreen, any advice for people on the autism spectrum over 18 trying to get SSI disability? And gets turned down. I'm from Mississippi, and I have some limitations that keeps me from living independently. I live with my parents. I don't drive, cook, etc. I wrote in the show before I got accepted to college, and my parents are afraid for me to live in a dorm. Any advice for me?
Yeah.
Heartbreaking.
I know. I don't know why you didn't get SSI. I would probably try to find a lawyer or a free legal clinic where they can advise you on the application for SSI, because you should be eligible for SSI. So it has something to do with, they add up the points based on the answers you put on an application. So I think it would be important to talk to a advocate or a lawyer who knows how to work SSI.
Right.
I mean, from our previous contact, I think, with this writer, with this listener, you're very motivated to go to college and to gain some independence. And while on the one hand, I feel we understand your perspective, and I wish there were more support groups for some of the teenagers and adults who are trying to get their lives going. And I commend you for taking care of these issues for yourself. I just think that's so fabulous. And keep going. More
I see real skill set here that you can write in on our live feature, which a lot of people have difficulty figuring out. And you're well spoken. You can type and good spelling.
Major skill sets. So I really wouldn't want you to give up.
Yeah.
At the same time, I kind of see your parents' point of view, because they've helped protect and shelter for so many years, and it's very hard for anyone to let their kids fly. So just keep with it, and I think it would be probably helpful if you had a peer group of some type, maybe not necessarily kids on the spectrum, and I don't even know if that exists, and maybe I should try to help some of our kids form that.
Absolutely.
But also just maybe if you have an interest, getting into a group that has similar interests would probably be somewhat supportive for you as well.
And I don't remember, and you didn't mention in this writing whether you're a male or a female, but for some reason I think if you're the writer that I think you were before, that it's a female who's writing in. There is a group that's springing up around the country. They're making little chapters called Girl Power, that is girls on the autism spectrum that are, I think, between the ages of 16 and 26, and to support each other. And I don't know if there's one in your area, or maybe that's something you can look into starting in your area.
That's
You can Google Girl Power. And the other thing that I'm wondering about, if college is of interest, one of the things when I met with Temple Grandin and we were talking about my son and his desire to do science and math, she gave me a bunch of web addresses that are in a blog that we wrote about talking with Temple, and because I listed all of them in the blog of places that you can now go online and take college credit classes for free. Which is an amazing. You don't get the credit,
right?
But you get the experience, and it could be really useful to you to be able to do something like that online, and then if you're successful at it, show it to your parents and say, "Look what I'm capable of doing," because then maybe you could take the classes for credit down the road.
Absolutely, and I think that you also probably might even be able to get in on a college that has online courses.
Absolutely.
I mean, there are a lot of everything. Education is going online very quickly,
yes.
So you might even want to just take an extension course somewhere online and actually get the credits and show your parents that. But I think your parents are probably aware of how intelligent you are and probably just scared for all the social reasons rather than academic reasons perhaps.
Right.
And so I think it's just a matter of time, and you just keep going at it and showing them how much you really want to do this.
Yeah.
And I hadn't heard about this group that you mentioned.
Girl Power, yeah.
But it sounds really fascinating. I want to look into it.
Okay.
Maybe since you have a new intern now,
yes,
maybe she can remind me later that to look up Girl Power.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure she's in there taking notes. We haven't introduced her on the show yet, but we need to do that. We have a new intern here that we're very excited about.
Yes.
And you're familiar with her. That's all we'll say. Okay, somebody wants to know, are probiotics like antifungal medicines? It's Biomedical Week here, and people have a lot of biomedical questions. It is great. So are probiotics like antifungal medicines?
No, they function absolutely differently, but have the same results. So it's kind of an interesting question. So probiotics are healthy bacteria. That's what they are. They're bacteria that's good for you. And by taking mass quantities of them, you're populating your gut with the appropriate bacteria that, by the way, most people have when you're born.
Right.
Not everybody, but most people have when you're born. And that is the bacteria, or very shortly after that. And that's the bacteria that helps you stay healthy, actually, in a million different ways, from digestion to just immune functioning. And so you want to be able to take probiotics, but I have to say that I don't think we have, and you go to a Whole Foods or something like that, and they have a lot of probiotics.
Yes.
But you can't even come close to replacing the probiotics that you normally would have or should have. And so you really want to take the strongest, the most complete probiotic and do it for a very long time. At the same time, antifungals are simply just destroying yeast.
Right.
So if you don't have healthy bacteria, yeast is going to grow faster. It's kind of, I guess, similar to thinking that if you put bread outside, you'll have mold on it faster than if you refrigerate it, for instance. So yeast will grow faster in the absence of probiotics. So the probiotics will delay the growth of the yeast. The antifungals will kill it. So together they are reducing yeast and just giving you a healthy flora.
Okay. I refer to my son as having his little ecosystem.
Yes.
That we're constantly trying to get the balance on the ecosystem, and some days we get it and other days we don't.
That's right.
But it makes a huge difference in how productive he is, and sometimes how compliant he is, because he'll just be squirrely if he's a little off, And
it's amazing when we do this show, I realize how much more our parents of kids with autism are connected to the biochemistry and the physiology of their children. Like you look at it so much more. I mean, every time I leave here, I think I should do this test for my child, my own kids, like that test, and I should look at this, and we don't. When you have typically developing kids, you don't pay attention to a lot of this stuff, even though it's extremely important.
Yeah. Well, every time we leave here, I want to do a new test on GEM, and I go, we need to do this, and we need to do that, so I think it's catchy. Okay, somebody wrote in and said, my child chews on his hands. How can I make that stop?
Right. Well, so the first question always is why?
Yeah.
Why does he chew on his hands? So now there's a lot of different reasons that could be happening. Like nail biting, chewing on your hands could potentially be just an anxiety type reaction. So it's kind of like just something you do when you're nervous. Okay, if that's the case, then you are looking at ways to reduce anxiety and give your child a better way to handle when he's nervous. It could also be just what we, let's say some of the kids who have self-injurious type behaviors. I don't know the severity, I don't know the frequency, so I'm not sure what this is, but I also don't know the settings within which it occurs. Maybe the writer can write back into us. But, self-injurious behavior usually, I think, happens either because, again, we're nervous or we want to feel, like this is the same concept as teenagers who do cutting. So it's sort of like you are perhaps, that's also kind of related to anxiety and depression, actually. But, I mean, perhaps you want a strong enough sensation that will ground you or make you feel like you're in control, give you a sense of safety. The behavioral response to this question is really, you block it, so you don't really want to allow it, and there's many ways to do that. But while you're blocking it, you also want to teach something more functional. And in order to teach something more functional, you kind of have to figure out why it's happening. And that's why I was trying to start with why does it happen? Because that's the behavior you teach that replaces it has to fulfill the reason it's happening.
Right.
So, if it's anxiety, you really want to teach some other good method or technique that the child can engage in that will help reduce his anxiety. Perhaps even something that's doesn't allow hand biting. Like, for instance, maybe you give your child an object that they carry in their pocket, and whenever they start to feel that, they take the object and squish it, like those squish balls.
Right.
Something that's distracting and prohibitive of the behavior.
Right.
Okay. So that's sort of the functional replacement. The blocking, if it's not very frequent, you just prevent it. You literally prevent it. You hold the child's hand when they're about to do it. If it's pretty frequent, that these things they have that are for nail biting. I forget what they're called. They have them at all general pharmacies, drugstores. I think they're called No Bite or something. And it's just a bitter tasting thing, and you would put that on the child's hand.
Okay.
Because then when they go to bite, they won't like the
good.
taste.
Okay.
Right, and they'll stop. And that's the easiest way to stop those types of behaviors. So while you want to prevent it from happening, you also want to give the child a different out.
Okay. This goes right along with our week in jargon this week, because on Monday our jargon was replacement behavior, and I believe on Friday it's competing behavior.
That's awesome.
So that's great.
Competing behavior is always better. Like sometimes I would tell, when kids are doing too much fidgeting with their hands, and this is the concept of, old teachers would tell you sit on your hands. Because it's competing. You can't do the other while you're sitting on your hands. But I think with this child it might be beneficial to just practice the blocking for a while and then give them some other activity that engages their hands.
Okay, great. I love this next question. I'm going to take my 7-year-old with autism on a plane, and I'm nervous. I don't know what to expect. How can I prepare him and myself for a turbulence-free flight? Which, good luck, because my sister-in-law has suggested I sedate him. That sounds scary to me.
Okay. So 7-hour flight is it?
It's a 7-year-old child.
We
don't know how long the
flight is.
I guess that does make a difference, doesn't it? How long the flight is.
And I also don't know what you're anticipating. Like, I don't know how, what are the behaviors you're afraid will occur.
Right.
So I guess there's a few different things you can do. First is make sure he's tired.
Okay.
So, maybe keep him up a little bit longer the night before.
Interesting. That would never have occurred to me. Can I just say? That would never have occurred to me. I would be trying to make sure that he was well slept.
Sure, but then he'll be more active on the flight, right?
Of course, it makes total sense, but it wouldn't have occurred to me. So already,
so then
thank you.
Paired with that is, don't be afraid of when you say my child says to give him medication.
Yeah.
Use a very benign medication, which is Benadryl.
Okay.
Benadryl is terrific. It's sort of what you take when you have allergies, right?
Right.
And you can buy it everywhere.
Yeah.
And Benadryl will make him somewhat drowsy, which is perfectly good.
Yeah.
And then this is what I used to do when I had 3 small children and we were taking kind of 11-hour flights to Europe. I would go out to the 99-cent store or something and I'd buy a whole ton of little gifts and I'd wrap each one in aluminum foil or something that takes a while to open.
Okay.
And then I would and also when we get on the plane and sit down, and by the way, some children have a hard time with just buckling in. Yeah. So that's something you perhaps want to practice before, so your child actually learns to be buckled in and stay for, let's say, the duration of about 5 minutes or so, maybe 10 minutes. And that's something you can practice ahead of time by just shaping, because that seems to be a very traumatic event for some families, because the child is just so hyper they don't want to be buckled in.
Right.
But I mean, if you can practice this, and most kids get used to it in the car.
Yeah.
So if you can practice it though at home, not in the car, but at home, and perhaps if your child is able to look through a book or something that'll keep them engaged for 10 minutes, that'll be great. Usually I would give my kids something to drink or a lollipop during the takeoff and during landing, because that will help their ears, so you're kind of assuring they don't have pain going on. And then you pull out one of those gifts approximately every, 30 minutes or something, and that will help engage the child with opening it up and then playing with it for a period of time. Really, the answer is, I think our kids only kind of tend to freak out if they are bored, which is usually if they feel confined. So you want to let your child walk up and down the aisles when they can and get some activity. And if they're a little bit hyper, and so that's why you kind of want to mellow them down a little bit, but keep them engaged. That's the biggest thing. Because I think a lot of our kids do really well if they're busy.
Yeah. And I just had to fly a bunch of times with Jem, and he's significantly older now. I have to say that having a DS, or on one trip we took a Kindle.
Oh, God, yeah. Nowadays with technology, it's like... it's so much easier for the kids.
But the gift thing, because what I did see is that on takeoff and landings, then he had nothing to do. So I love the idea of the gifts and having something, a fidget toy or something, especially during those times.
Right, and again, depending on it's a 7-year-old, so those little puzzles that you have to balance, those really keep the kids busy. You have to think what this child's interests are, and it doesn't even matter if they're somewhat self-stimulatory at this point, because really your goal is not to work on self-stimulatory behaviors at this moment. Your goal is to keep the child, calm during a long flight.
Yes, absolutely. Great advice. Okay, this is a question that came in last week. I'm thinking of moving to California. Are there schools for autism you could recommend? Who pays for the schooling there? Is there a voucher system?
Okay, so... there are schools, and I wish I knew more about this parent's concerns, because I'm not sure you're even looking for a school. I can't respond to that. California is a pretty great state in terms of what it provides you if you have a child. So you have pretty much the majority of the districts will have some sort of a autism program, first of all. So. You're not really even looking for a autism type school that doesn't exist anymore, but there are many school programs for kids with autism, and you'd have to go and evaluate, and depending on where you move, each district has different resources. But in addition to that, so those are public programs, so yes, they're free to you, but in addition to that, obviously, you do have the support of the regional center system in California, which is part of the Department of Developmental Services, and they do fund kids with autism autism, depending on the specific needs. If you have health insurance in California, you will have coverage. Depending again on your child's age and so on and so forth. And then of course school districts here in California also provide some coverage. So you have 3 different sources of funding for your child's needs. Generally, if it's educational needs, the school district is responsible for that. If it's more adaptive, safety, those types of issues, the Department of Developmental Services or regional centers take responsibility for that. And everything else, like an ABA program in home and so on, is the responsibility of the insurance now. So you have a lot that you can do in California. Perhaps if you write back in and tell us the specific needs of your child, then I can also recommend regions.
Okay. And I do think, because we've had several questions a lot, so I think I actually do have the email for this person that I can give you so that you can talk directly to them.
Great, yeah, because the regions are different, the districts are different,
okay.
And the regional centers are different too.
Yeah.
I mean, some regional centers will even pick up your copay, others won't yet. There's a lot of issues to consider.
Yes, and in the next hour, we're going to be talking about some legislation that's going to be helpful, and you've been very involved in some legislation here to help with those kinds of things, and I'm hoping that down the road, we're going to get to the point where regional centers are across the board.
Yeah,
what one regional center gives that another one has to give, so that there isn't this huge disparity that I just don't understand.
That's right. It's so important. I was really worried because I thought that bill might be dropped, but it's still being carried. We really are trying very hard to just get the support from the regional centers so that families can access their health insurance, and that would be, as I said, some of the regional centers have been very generous with helping families with copays, and that is just incredible. It opens up the possibility to years of funding.
It's what's right.
Right.
It's really what's right. And I have to say that whenever we talk about things in California, I want to remind everybody, if you're sitting there thinking, what does this have to do with me? I'm in India, or what does this have to do with me? I'm in Kansas. Somebody has to get a ball rolling at some point. And California is a very big state. There's a lot of kids with autism.
Oh.
And if we set a precedent here in California, it will move to other places. We've seen that happen.
Absolutely, and it's not even always California being the first.
Absolutely, I mean, Arizona.
Arizona was with insurance, and Autism Speaks. Thanks to Autism Speaks, they really did an incredible job over the last few years with moving the insurance mandates and reform forward. And ACT Today, you'll be talking with Nancy next, and we're doing as much as we can to help families with the copays as well. So that's a big thing. And things do tend to spread. And if you're in India or somewhere, you might be a parent that can make a big change for other parents, just like we were talking about last week or a couple of weeks ago with our South Africa families. And the change they've made in that region. So we have to keep plodding on. A lot has changed. A lot. There was zero funding when I started, so.
You have a new saying on the wall upstairs. And we had our fabulous intern take a picture of it. And I think Emily has access to it. I didn't tell her that we were going to do it right now. But it kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking about. Can we show that picture, Emily? Can we put it full screen so that they can see it? Because I can't remember exactly what it says.
I think it's something like, I
had it written down. There it is.
Welcome to the community of people who have decided that easy will no longer suffice. And this is very true. And there's a part of me that wanted to cross out easy and say impossible.
Right.
Because sometimes, in this field, everybody tells us it's impossible. There's no way this is ever going to happen.
Right.
And hey, guess what? It happens.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
And I've gotten so much inspiration here from you and from parents that are here to realize that there are so many things that we can do. That I find myself always now thinking of, okay, well, what's possible?
Right.
If we run up against an obstacle, all right, well, what's possible?
How do we solve it? Right.
That may be true. I think this is the ACT stuff wearing off on me too. All right, that might be true. This problem is here.
That's right.
That you now have insurance, but you have this huge copay.
Yeah.
It's there. But how are we going to get around that?
What are we going to do?
Right. And we have lots of things that we talk about here about how to figure out and resources for figuring that out. Emily, do we have time for one more question? Okay, another biomedical question. Why don't pediatricians tell everyone to try the GFCF diet? It can't hurt, right?
That's a great question. I guess because we would probably be putting a lot of businesses out of business.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you think about it, I think let's start with just casein-free. I mean, if you say casein-free and you generally, to answer your question, I am one of those people that tends to be very hesitant with gluten and casein. I mean, my kids, generally speaking, weren't, when they were younger, were not exposed to a lot of milk. Let's really put it that way. I was very restrictive on milk for them. And for my son, for a few years, he just was not allowed milk. But, you know, if we were to say that, I mean, think of the industry of dairy industry in this country and how strong it is. So I think you'd end up getting a tremendous amount of pushback. And gluten as well. Obviously, the first, genetically modified food ever was wheat, which is potentially why we now have a lot of issues with digestion of wheat. But to be able to say that, I think what it would result in is it would be the same kind of mistake that was made with vaccines. I think initially when a lot of discussion came up on the vaccine issue, and a lot of people just said no vaccines, whereas really it shouldn't have been no vaccines. It was more, can we actually do testing that will allow us to see which kids shouldn't be vaccinated so young, or which kids need their vaccines to be spread out. That's what we really wanted. But because there was this huge, no vaccine reaction, then the vaccine lobby just said, hey, these guys are causing epidemics. This is becoming a big issue, and we need to fight back. So at this point, if you say no gluten and no casein for anyone, I think you'll just end up causing a lot of fight back from the wheat and whole grain industry and the dairy industry, and it'll cause a lot of confusion and chaos for people who are lost and new to the system. So better is for us to say, really look at the reaction and the allergic reaction, the sensitivity reaction that your child has, and then do the diet if you need to. And having said that, Shannon, I'm astonished when I look at the accessibility to gluten-free products over the past 5 years. I mean, I can't even believe it. It's crazy.
You can go to Walmart and find a Betty Crocker cake mix that is gluten-free. It's crazy.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Exactly.
But I love what you said, because I'm a big proponent of, obviously in my life, one size does not fit all.
That's right.
So if it isn't true for us, it wouldn't be true for our kids. And even saying GFCF, one size cannot fit all. And I do think that pediatricians are mindful of the fact that it is at least the beginning of doing a GFCF diet can be, if you don't have a lot of support, stressful. And I don't think that I would guess that a lot of them feel like parents would not be amenable to that.
It's hard. It's very hard to
Especially in the beginning. And I think if you don't have support, it doesn't have to be hard. And we have, people in talking all the time about how easy it can be once, and with access to all these products now, it really is amazing that you can go to a restaurant now, almost any restaurant, and ask for the gluten-free menu, and they don't look at you like you've just stepped off of the crazy train. It's very exciting.
That would be very good information once we start gathering some stuff and putting it online for parents. It would be really good information to tell them a list of restaurants that actually have gluten-free.
Absolutely.
And also just steps you can take to make your kitchen gluten-free.
Absolutely. Stuff that we can cover. Even Disneyland. I love going to Disneyland, and you go and you get the gluten-free menu, and you put in the order, and you can order it a day in advance if you want to.
It's amazing.
It's a very exciting world that we live in. Now, we just had a question come in about a picky eater, but we're going to save that for next week.
Okay.
Because we're out of time, and we have to start Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, but I so appreciate you for being here.
It was a pleasure, always.
And we'll look forward to talking with you next week when we will be in Autism Awareness Month. I have to ask you really quickly, how are you celebrating World Autism Awareness Day on Tuesday?
Well, first of all, as you know, CART has a whole Spirit Week next week, which is kind of going to be exciting. And Wednesday, is it Wednesday? Not next week, but the
week
following
after.
week.
Yes.
Right, the following week, Wednesday, is actually my birthday, and I'll
Yes.
be here, so that'll be kind of fun. You know, we are doing a lot of different activities across our sites. In fact, one of the things I should do is have maybe Tiffany O'Day, who's in charge of our marketing, come and chat with you about some of the different things they're doing, because we have a lot going on.
They have a newsletter that they can send out to people of all the different things that are going. I just wondered what you personally
am I doing for Autism Awareness
Do you
Month?
light up your house blue?
No, I won't be this year doing anything like that, because, as you know, I have a very big birthday coming up. That in 2 weeks, and so currently my house is under construction, and what I'll be doing is praying that they finish construction and get out in time for the party, and then setting up the party. But it's a half century for me, so it'll be a big deal for me.
And no one would know if you didn't tell them.
Yeah, well.
No one would know. I mean, look at us. I just had that birthday, and nobody would guess that.
Yeah,
I think they would guess that I could. No, I think that nobody would guess that you and I are the same age. I think I could easily pass for your mother.
No, that's so not true.
That is
and
so
by
true.
the way, what I want to say to you also, now before I leave, is that I really like your hair back this way, so I'm looking forward to the shaved look.
Yeah, well, it's so long and out of control at this point that this morning I put this on to put the makeup on, and I said, "Can I please leave it this way? I can't handle it."
When is the shave off again?
It is on the 8th of April, so a little less than 2 weeks.
Yep.
Very thrilling. Maybe you can drop in that day to see what's happening. Very thrilling. All right, we're going to take a break and show you the A word. This is an amazing documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy, Jack Riley, as he begins and goes through his early intervention, behavioral intervention. Very exciting series. When we come back, we'll be joined by Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Our very special guest today, Julie Kornack, is going to be here talking with a lot of legislation that's happening here in California that we feel like you all need to know about. And there's something that you can do. We're always talking about being able to take an action that's free. We've got an action you can take today. So stick with us and take a look at the A word.
Have fun. Okay, bye.
He's starting to sit a little bit longer, and he gets the idea, okay, if I sit, get my stickers, then I can go. This is actually a 10 token board, but right now he's only on 5 right now, but eventually we'll move him up to 10. It's a good way for him to visually see, that there is an end. Like, once I get all the board filled up with stickers, then I can leave.
Jessica does a preference assessment to see what Jack Riley wants to work for before she begins her first trial.
Okay, what do you want, pancakes or do you want bubbles?
Bubbles.
Say I.
I want pancake.
Do you want pancakes or bubbles?
Pancakes.
Pancakes? Say, I want pancakes.
I want pancakes.
Okay, sounds good. What's your dad's name?
Mike.
Mike, good job. Here you go. Now put the J on.
Push the J on.
Put the J. J. Good job. Nice job. When's your birthday?
December 15th.
December 15th. Good job. How old are you?
2.
Nice. Can you show me the fingers?
2.
2. Good job. Here you go. What's your mom's name?
Cheryl.
Cheryl. Very good. Whoops. Whoops. Here you go. Put another one on there. Where does the K go? Good job. What does it say? Jack. Say Riley. There you go. All done. Here you go. It's good. Okay, go play. See you later.
What?
Here, you gonna bring the tractor?
Elbows.
It is okay.
Wait.
He's lining up the dinosaurs in a row. Okay, buddy.
Lining up objects is associated with autism because it shows that the child doesn't know how to appropriately play with toys. This is why Jack Riley's therapists teach play skills, so you can learn how to learn. Playing is learning through imitation, and it also helps develop communication skills. This is why the behavior is redirected.
Let's make a bridge for the dinosaurs. Are they friends? Should we walk? Let's walk. Let's walk. Yay! Let's go play. What else can we do? Jack, what is this? It's
Is it this way? Is it this way?
It's a this way?
Is it this way?
Is it a bridge? Did you make a bridge? It's a bridge. Can the dinosaur walk on the bridge? Walk on the bridge?
Walk.
Can you make the dinosaur walk? You do it.
Dinosaur walk.
Jack Riley, do it. Make him walk. Walk. Here, slide down. Slide. Whee! Ready? I want to do it. Ready? Whee!
Sometimes lining up toys can be appropriate play. Jack Riley lines up his blocks to build a bridge. What makes lining up toys an indicator for autism is when the behavior is limited and is the only way the child interacts with the objects.
That's more creative, Jack. At clinic, Sabrina suggested to make a visual schedule because he's been having a hard time walking outside. So look, what's this first? There's Dad, there's you, there's Miss Shireen. You're holding hands. Like you're walking on the sidewalk, holding hands. And then when you get to the grass, you stop. You stop.
You stop.
Yep. You stop. And then what do you get to do? You get to run on the
Grass.
Say run on the grass. Good job. The end. But yeah, so we were gonna show him like along the way as every step, like you walk out, you hold hand and emphasize holding hands.
Okay.
You guys walking the sidewalk holding hands, and then the next picture is you guys stopping in front of the grass.
Okay.
Still holding hands.
Okay.
And then his reward is
you get to play.
He gets to play on the grass. And he got the concept, or the idea. Anyway, we'll see if put into play, will he get it? But I'm sure he'll get it.
He'll get it. That.
Yeah.
Having a destination was the biggest thing for him. Like knowing what the goal was.
I think before you say come here, and he thinks it's over. And yesterday he'd be playing, and Cheryl would say come here, and he would run down, and then she'd whisper, "You want to go to the grass?" And he just was.
Good.
I think it's all been about, now we have to go in every time we call him.
Or a tantrum he has, or really a lot of his bad behaviors, because he doesn't know.
What do we have to do first?
Remember, what are you gonna do first, though?
Hold what?
You want to do it, or you want me to do it?
Hold what?
Since he sees your picture.
Hold hands. Go hold hands with Dad, like the picture.
Good.
All right.
Remember like yesterday.
15, 16, 17, 18, 19.
We still hold hands.
Can
we
you?
Still hold hands. Stop.
Right?
We still hold hands.
Where do you guys want to
Right here, and then we made a mask.
Yeah, then we stop and make him ask.
Can you say, I want to play on the grass? Okay, go.
Yay! Go!
Have you hugged your tree today? You gonna kiss it too? Tree hugger and
Come here. Yay! Uh-oh, wet butt. Wet butt. Hey, do you want stairs or grass?
Grass.
Okay, stay with Mom. 10 steps. 10 steps. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Stay with me.
10 steps.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You want grass? Okay, good.
Using a visual schedule has helped Jack Riley a lot on outings because he can anticipate what will happen next. And unlike last week, there has been no aggression or biting. Whether it's a token board or a visual schedule, having items JR can see helps him a lot to know what's happening next, and therefore be a lot less anxious.
What do you want? You want grass or do you want... Okay, go play!
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod, and so thrilled to be here with you.
I agree with Doreen. I like your hair like this.
Well, it's been an unruly month. It's been a crazy thing. I can't wait.
And soon you will have no hair.
I can't wait to shave it. It's driving me crazy.
I feel that way myself many mornings. You know,
really? You have beautiful hair.
I know, but the blow dryer and the, when I wake up, it's sticking everywhere. And
oh, talk to me about sticking everywhere. I said earlier this week I look like I stuck my finger in a light socket or that I'm Helena Bonham Carter on a bad hair day.
Right. Sometimes I envy, those movie stars that wear wigs. Apparently Liz Taylor wore wigs most of her life,
I think that would be freeing. We'll see. I mean, we'll see.
Maybe a wig would be claustrophobic, actually.
I think it might be hot.
In the summer.
We'll see.
But I think being bald, I think Sinead O'Connor looks great bald, personally.
Absolutely. I don't know that I have the face structure
Well, I think you'll look good. But see, I don't know that I could do the bald head with no makeup. I think you have to have makeup on.
I think I'll be mistaken for a little old fat man with no makeup on.
No, you
exactly.
won't.
Have you seen, we on our Facebook right now, we have Suzanne Oshinsky made this hilarious thing with our fabulous new intern. Did you meet our fabulous new intern?
No, I have not.
You did not meet Nikki out in the outer, she's our fabulous new intern.
Oh, Nikki is our fabulous new intern. Well, I know Nikki.
Yes, I know you do. In any case, they both helped me, and we put on the bald cap, and they green screened it. And so on our Facebook, you have the opportunity, everybody at home, to print this out and decorate like those old-fashioned things where they had the iron shavings to make hair around somebody. It's pretty hilarious.
Oh, that's funny.
So you should check it out on our
And we have
Facebook.
to decide what I'm going to do.
Yes, maybe we should take suggestions from people because you offered to do some big act of compassion.
I'm happy to do any. Let's take suggestions. If anybody would like to tell me what they'd like me to do, I'm happy to dive in your blue.
Okay.
That can be fun for especially autism awareness. It'd be fun. Mic against neck. We're hearing.
Is it me, Emily, or Nancy? Okay,
Nancy.
We have mic issues.
Well,
but in
I will
any case,
find it and pull it down.
There we go.
Okay.
But we have some exciting stuff to talk about today. A lot of stuff in the news.
Yes.
And then we're going to be joined a little bit later on by Julie Kornack, who is an amazing brain.
Yes, she's our public policy analyst at Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And Act Today works with Julie on a lot of different things as well. So,
and I always think of a beautiful mind because she's a very smart woman.
She is, and she can break down some of this legislation and what it means.
And explain it to us.
Explain it to us.
I need some splaining.
Okay. All right. Good.
Okay.
So let's talk about last week while we were doing the show. It broke that there are new stats on prevalence of autism, and 1 in 50 kids have ASD according to parents in a telephone survey.
Yes, and these are school-age children.
Yes.
So really interesting because last year we had the 1 in 88 number, which is a different survey because that was surveying just children who were born in the year 2000.
Okay.
But this is a little bit more expansive. It's school-age children. And I will be honest that one of the big deals for me is this is the first time a number has come out that includes my child.
Yes.
In the numbers. Now, a lot of people, there is a lot of pushback on the numbers about how accurate can it be if it's a phone survey and who picked up the phone and who didn't.
Right.
But they've been doing this survey for a while, and the last time that they did the survey, it was 1 in 80, I believe. So 1 in 50, we see that the numbers keep going in a direction.
Right. And obviously, I think it just lends credence to the fact that yes, the numbers are definitively growing.
Yes.
And they're saying that that they believe the 1 in 88 figure is too low at this point.
Yeah.
And I think most of us that are really immersed in the world of autism, that have children in that world, we've always felt that the 1 in 110 we knew was very low.
Right.
And chances are that it is closer to this number, and could even be higher than that.
Absolutely.
Like, as you said, it might have missed people. So my question is, though, do we officially change our stats to 1 in 50?
And we've been waiting to hear whether the CDC will adopt this.
Okay.
So I don't know. You know, I mean, I think it really depends on that. I think that tends to be the official number, what the CDC says. But you know what? My question has been, of everybody who's come in this room since these numbers came out, what was your first reaction when you heard this?
My first reaction was no surprise.
Really?
Yeah. What have you heard from others?
You know, it's been interesting, you know, people who went through a little bit of depression and there were tears, shock. People who said, oh, yes, this absolutely makes sense. This, people who said, you know what my husband said? He said, well, hooray, because now somebody will listen. And I said, really? Do you think so? Really? If I thought that, I would get excited.
That kind of leads to our next story in the news.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is that there's been a national standard urged for autism coverage, which we know is necessary. And the Interagency Autism Coordinating Committee, known as the IACC, has voted unanimously to send a letter to U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services Kathleen Sebelius, highlighting the vast differences emerging as states determine what type of treatment insurance providers will cover under the new health care reform law.
Yeah. And this is something we've been talking about a lot. We're wearing the ribbons.
Where's my ribbon?
I think
it fell.
I think you fell off, too.
Okay, I'll find it.
She had one.
I had one.
But we've been wearing the ribbons to remind everybody to sign the petition asking the same thing that the IACC is asking for, that Kathleen Sebelius, and we, by the way, did contact her office yesterday, and we're awaiting on, we invited her to be on the show to give a statement, or, you know, to be interviewed, because I would like to know how she is going to be a leader from this moment on. She, you know, this committee was formed. They are supposed to inform her. They have unanimously voted that there be a national standard. The same thing that we've been asking for.
Yeah.
Don't leave it up to the states.
Yeah, and it's time, really, that the White House took action on this epidemic.
And the way
they've been silent on it for the most part.
And the way I see this is like a food chain, right? They asked the IACC to report, and the IACC has taken a little bit of time doing that, right? But now they have reported and said, here's what we think needs to happen. That goes to Kathleen Sebelius, who is the Secretary of Health and Human Services, and then she reports to the President.
Right.
So what I would like to see is a very quick food chain, that we see some action.
Yeah. When you hear these numbers, whether you go with the 1 in 88 or the 1 in 50, we have an epidemic of crisis proportion that is going to affect our ability, if we're looking at it from strictly even a national economic standpoint, a national security standpoint, all of these things. If these children are in the public school system and they are unable to compete and access the curriculum, we are not going to be able to stay competitive in the world marketplace.
Absolutely.
And many of these children will require a lifetime of care. If we can get the early intervention, if we can get the ABA coverage mandated in every state, if we can get children diagnosed early and get the ABA coverage, recovery is possible, and the possibilities are infinite for what these children can do. They can grow up to be our scientists. They could grow up to be our next president. They can grow up to be the people that move our nation forward. So otherwise, it's going to be an enormous drain on our country, and that's what we're trying to say. We're trying to say this affects everybody.
Absolutely does. So I'm anxious to hear back from the Honorable Kathleen Sebelius.
Yes, so let's hope we get through to her.
And we'll see what they report back.
Okay.
But we're going to take a break, and then we have Julie Kornack, who's going to come in and explain to us. There's a great deal of legislation right now in the state of California, and I was mentioning in the previous segment that if you're thinking, what does this have to do with me? It has a lot to do with you, because if precedent is set here, then you will see quick trickle down, especially if the legislation is put in place and we can show definitively hopefully that it's been effective in helping our kids create progress.
Right. And California has been somewhat of a leader in providing ABA coverage and in being in the forefront of research. And obviously, Dr. Granpeesheh with Center for Autism and Related Disorders, the largest provider of ABA therapy in the world. So we really are kind of a leader in this field, and I think it's important that we continue with this lead position. And I think Julie's going to explain to us ways that we can support this legislation.
Absolutely, and we'll talk about, too, the fact that ACT Today, because you're executive director of Autism Care and Treatment Today, ACT Today, and that you are sponsoring some of this legislation.
Yes, we are.
And I want to hear about why you've chosen to sponsor what you've chosen to sponsor. So really excited about that. Okay, we're going to take a break and come back with Julie Kornack after these messages.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, you know, where is he, what is he doing, is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but you know, we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT?
What did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, you know, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle, and without that, they wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. You know, we underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community. We're back with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, and the video you saw in the break was about ACT Today's Inclusion Films Camp for military children with autism and their siblings. And I am happy to tell you, thrilled to tell you, that we will be moving forward this year with yet another camp.
That's so exciting.
We just got the funding together. Cox Communications is once again one of our partners, and Fox TV down in San Diego, and a few other organizations. And we entered a global giving campaign, and Microsoft came in and said they would match every donation, and we raised $31,000 through that campaign.
Wonderful.
So we have all the money together again for our kids this year, and hopefully a whole new group of kids will come learn how to the art of filmmaking and get some great self-esteem and social skills.
Very exciting.
Yeah, very
Congratulations.
exciting.
Good
Thank you.
work.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Now, we also have some exciting things to talk about because our special guest here in the studio right now is Julie Kornack. I don't know if you got to hear before I was saying that you have you have a beautiful mind. You're a very smart lady. And
No pressure.
No pressure. But I enjoy being around you and talking with you because you get it. You get all these things, and you can explain them to me in a way that I get them, which is a very great thing.
Well, I was listening to you, and you definitely get it. When you were explaining the whole IACC letter to Kathleen Sebelius, you did a great job.
Okay, good, because I think that's because you've explained it to me, though. I think you get all the credit.
I'll take all the credit.
All right. But you've got a list of things that are going on right now. And we're going to talk about some of the legislation that's happening here in California.
Great.
And give everybody at home some different things that they can do to help support.
Okay.
So
sounds good.
Tell us what's going on right now, because it's a very exciting time.
Well, we've just started the California legislative session, and right now California is so lucky because, led by its Senate Pro Tem, the president of the Senate, Senator Steinberg, he's just the most autism-friendly senator, and he has encouraged everybody and sort of laid this foundation for other senators and other assembly members to support all of these different autism bills. So right now we have 20 bills that are related to autism working their way through the legislative process.
And has he always been supportive?
He has been very supportive. He's very informed and engaged, and he's always eager to learn more, and he has staff members who are equally informed and dedicated, and Dr. Louis Vismara, who was one of the founders of the Mind Institute at UC Davis, is on his staff and one of the great friends of the autism community. So
the thing that I recall is when it looked like insurance reform wasn't going to happen in California, and we were all going, oh, we're going to miss another year of it, is that Senator Steinberg stood up and said, this is it. It stops with me. I'm making this happen. And I just remember him saying, it stops with me. I'm making this my priority. And I wanted to drive up to Sacramento and hug him, because that's what it takes, is somebody to step up and say, no, I'm sorry, I've heard all the excuses, this stops with me.
And he has, now that he's seen it start to work in California, and he sees that there's issues that need to be addressed and that sort of thing, he's really eager to turn California into a model for the rest of the country, which is just, even more incentive for people to sort of get on the bandwagon and support autism services.
That's why it's so important to really support some of these statewide initiatives, because as goes California, can go the rest of the country.
California is often a trendsetter, and one of the things that a lot of people feel frustrated when they have the opportunity to vote when there's elections and they maybe don't have the outcome that they were hoping for. When you find a legislative bill that says what you like and that's going to create something that's important to you, you really can make a difference. I've heard that there are congressmen who, if they hear from 6 constituents, will actually change their mind about a bill.
Wow.
So it doesn't take that much activism to make a difference here.
Okay, great.
So we're going to talk about some of the bills that are working their way through the legislature.
Okay, let's talk about
this is all California. I'm sorry we're not talking more about other states right now, but this is the California
As we
hour.
said, California is the trendsetter.
That's right.
And as goes California, could possibly go your state.
And if you live in another state, you can still show your support for the bill, and you can still explain why you think it's important.
Yes.
So,
absolutely.
First, we should start with the bill that Act Today is supporting.
Okay.
Some of you may be familiar with Senator Steinberg convened a task force earlier, sort of late in 2012. Dr. Granpeesheh was part of the task force. And this task force was convened to address the disparity in regional center services from one regional center to another. For those of you who got some of your services from regional centers, you might be really aware of the disparity, and others may not, but you would have families in Orange County getting $18,000 a year worth of services, and families in South Central getting $1,000 a year worth of services.
Right.
And they actually came up with a horrible statistic that 79% of families who go to regional centers never return after the first visit.
Oh my goodness, I had never heard that before.
Isn't that just a heartbreaking statistic?
That's horrifying.
But it's horrifying, yet once again, not surprising to me, because I know the tenacity that a parent has to have, as you do, to get through to the regional center, where you're often put off. You'll be told you'll get a call back, and just the sheer volume of people they have to deal with. I mean, I'm not putting all the onus on them, but I think it's just a very difficult situation when they have so many people to serve, and it really is a squeaky wheel situation when you're dealing with the regional center.
And that's a shame. And one of the things that families have fought for is some sort of standardization of regional center services, so that if your child is diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, you have almost like, not that care shouldn't be individualized, but the resources available to you could be a little individualized. So could be standardized, so that you don't have so much disparity from one regional center to the next. And since this disparity was identified, Senator Steinberg said, what can we do about it? And he convened a task force of all kinds of experts, providers and stakeholders, individuals with autism, parents with kids who have autism, and people from the Mind Institute, the best of the best. And everybody really worked on 5 different questions. And from that task force, 7 different bills are now working their way through the legislature. And they all address this core issue that is lacking in the regional centers right now, not necessarily because it's anybody's fault, but something that they've really noticed is that there's not a lot of attention paid to cultural and linguistic diversity. So if you don't speak English, if you aren't sort of, your typical American family, it's much harder for you to navigate your way through the regional centers. And so they want to make sure that everybody has access to the same resources. And that's why I think Act Today signed on to sponsor AB 1232, because it's all about making sure that the services that are provided are culturally and linguistically sensitive to everybody.
And we see such a huge increase in number of grants from underserved communities, Hispanic, African American, Hispanic families not getting access and seemingly having limited services around the country. So it's a big concern to us, and so this bill was extremely important.
And we've seen Act Today's, because the Clinton Health Matters initiative has sort of focused on the Coachella Valley as one of the places with the greatest health disparities, and Act Today is right on board there. And I know you've translated a bunch of your informational pamphlets into Spanish.
And we've shot right in this studio with Gabriela Tessier, our board member who's an anchor at Univision. We have done a series of videos that are available on Act Today's website for Latino families to access in terms of the signs of autism and those things. So you can go on the act-today.org website and access those.
That's so important. It's so important to have those things available to families. And really, all of these bills that are working their way through the legislature right now, they're all about increasing access to services. Nothing is about increasing cost, because if you really look at when people get the services they need, the cost to the community goes down. So if we can increase awareness and we can increase access, we're all going to have a better outcome. And so that's what, if you want to reach out to your audience and ask them to support some of these bills, I know you've posted a few on their website.
Absolutely. If you go to our website, we have a brand new blog that we've started just in the last week, and if you go to our website, www.autism-live autism-live.com. I don't know why today I have a problem with that. autism-live.com. Emily's got it up there so you can see. And go there, click on the blog tab, and we have a blog that is there today that has the links to everything that you need to follow along with what we're doing.
Okay.
This piece of paper that Julie is referring to that's got all the legislation is there. We've got some of the actual bills there, and there's a letter that's there that you can customize for yourself. It's a form letter, but you can put in your own information. And then if you want to, it also has information about who you can fax the letter to.
Right.
But if you'd rather, if you want to make your life simple, because there's a long list of people that you would have to fax it to, and that might take you the rest of your day. Or you could take your letter and you could email it to us at autismlive@gmail.com, and we will fax it to all the people on the list for you.
What a great
So you just have to do one letter, email it to us, and we'll make sure that it gets to all the people on the list.
And that covers all the bills that
No, that's the thing. You would want to do one letter for each bill. So I think right now we have up there, we have the AB 1232 bill. And so for AB 1231, this is the one that CARD is sponsoring. And it's also, we should actually give a shout out to the Assembly member Perez, who is the one who's, author of these bills. What a great friend to the autism community he's been. And now he's working so hard to get this legislation passed. And for AB 1231, which is just such an important bill, and the reason that CARD is sponsoring it is that it's directing the regional centers to give the option of telehealth services to consumers of the regional centers for some behavioral health treatment and for some dentistry. So,
because a lot of children on the spectrum have issues with dentistry.
A lot of children on the spectrum have issues with the sounds and the strange environment, and it's very difficult to even get them into a dentist chair. And that doesn't mean that they shouldn't have access to somebody, talking to them about dental hygiene, maybe even reviewing a problem with them through telehealth using Skype and that sort of thing. And then for behavioral health, imagine if parents who work didn't have to go to the regional centers to complete parent training, but they could do it online.
That's such a lifesaver.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So do talk a little bit about, because I think telehealth, it sounds scary to some people. It's this new term, teledentistry. You think, my goodness, how can we do teledentistry?
Possible, right.
Science fiction.
So telehealth is really Skyping. Any of you who have smartphones and maybe you've talked with people and you can see their face on the phone, that's what they say telehealth. And eventually, over time, people who don't have smartphones and don't have an internet connection in their home will have the opportunity to go to libraries or healthcare kiosks and access, telehealth, use a computer, log in, have a camera, and talk to a professional, whether it's a doctor or a dentist or a behavioral therapist, and get the support that they need.
A lot of the smartphones that people have access to today, even some of the most simple models, do have a Skype feature, or your computer often has Skype that you can download and then reach. And so this will encourage regional center to utilize.
The thing is, the Lanterman Act already says to the regional centers, be innovative in the way that you give services to families. Be cost effective, try new things. But the regional centers are often very reluctant to do that. They're always worried that they're going to authorize something that they're not allowed to authorize. So they say, tell the Department of Developmental Services to tell us it's okay. That's DDS. And DDS doesn't want to, they're busy, they have a lot going on, and they're not going to put down what they're doing to tell the regional centers to do something. So this actually is a law that tells DDS, tell the regional centers, it's okay to use telehealth. So,
and again, getting back to, what are some, I love the idea of the parent training. We had to do 16 hours of training, right?
Yes, we did. We had to go on a Saturday to a location and, taking that time off and child care.
Both parents.
And watch the video and all of that.
Well, the parent training that's required by the regional centers, and of course, I don't think anybody would disagree with the fact that parent, understanding of the treatment plan is critical to the success.
It's crucial.
So we're all on the same page there. But the parent training requirement, where they almost use it as a barrier to treatment because you can't access services until you complete this parent training. And people who work have trouble completing the parent training. And so that actually ended up being one of the things that was identified by the task force, the Senate task force, workforce as causing some of the disparity, that these working families who couldn't take time off of work.
And beyond even that, we're talking childcare. We're talking about a community that has a great deal of difficulty finding a babysitter where they can ensure that their child is safe and not causing a further problem. I just last night was thanking the friend who took time off of work to babysit my child so that we could do the training, because I don't know that we could have done it otherwise.
It's an unrealistic expectation, and it's definitely creating a barrier for families, and it's more likely to be a barrier to treatment for families who are working poor and economically challenged. Maybe they live in rural areas and it's even harder to get to a regional center.
It was interesting. During my parent training, I had several parents come over to me and say, "You seem to be knowledgeable. Can you explain to me some of this?" During the break, they would ask me for a little bit further, to shed a little bit further light on some of it. And they were completely overwhelmed. And two of them were really, their primary language was Spanish, and it was very hard for them to follow the training.
Well, and that's one of the things that all of these bills are talking about, is doing everything in a linguistically competent manner, something that's going to be friendly to whatever the native language is.
Yeah, I want to make sure that everybody knows that at Act Today, our grant application can be done in Spanish, and we do have, we're hoping to replace our wonderful Alejandra, who went on to a great new job, but she was our grants program coordinator, and she was bilingual. So we do have that service for Hispanic-speaking families that we can assist them either over the phone or online. So that's important to note.
Yeah, that's amazing. The more access we can give to these families, everybody out there needs the same treatment.
And TACA has a family guide that is completely in Spanish as well. If you want to go through Talk About Curing Autism and get their family guide written in Spanish.
It's important for this. But I want to get back to the telehealth. So what are some other things besides parent training that might be useful to families to use telehealth?
Well, first I want to preface that by saying that the telehealth services, once they're authorized, would completely be an option that the consumer would choose. So it's never, ever going to be something that is forced on a consumer. And a consumer could choose it, decide they don't like it, and stop doing it. So it's completely just adding something to the menu for the consumer. It's an option. It's not a provider saying you have to do it. It's not the regional center saying you have to do it. So it's just expanding choices. And so when it works for you, you can use it. So maybe there's a situation where you have 3 therapists working with your child, and you want them all to be able to see the same behavior at the same time, that sort of thing. You'd be able to use telehealth to do that. For the clinics, when when the whole treatment team is going to meet, you'd be able to use telehealth to do that.
What about for things like the IPP, which is the meeting you have annually with your regional center?
Well, I don't think it specifically says that, because it's more about the services that the child's going to receive. But I do think that there's an argument to be made for that. I think that the other thing to remember is, as people become more comfortable integrating telehealth and other new things into their treatment plans, the more likely it's that they'll say, "Oh, you want to Skype somebody into the meeting for your IPP? No problem. We're used to that. We see that it's effective."
Now, what is teledentistry?
So teledentistry it's interesting because it sounds impossible. But there's so much information about how to care for your teeth and dental hygiene and ways that parents can help their children brush their teeth long enough and not have it be a traumatizing experience and that sort of thing.
Learning to floss.
Learning to floss.
The right foods to eat.
And just to be able to access the services of a dental professional, whether it's a hygienist or a dentist, and to be able to talk to that person and not be forced to go into an office, to travel someplace that maybe you don't have the ability to travel. Maybe it's just such a huge ordeal. Maybe you want to do when your behavioral therapist is at your home with you.
And the behavioral therapist can assist with the toothbrushing. At
and
the guidance of the dental professional.
No one's saying that a parent's going to take out a drill and listen to what the dentist is saying and start working on the child.
But how amazing to segment it into this can be done at home via a Skype connection. And so we get the most effective way. The child's in the environment that they're used to, has the help and support that they need to at home. They're more likely to be successful. And then the part that has to be done in person, you could go in and just do that and not try to accomplish 32 things all at that same time when it's not productive.
And maybe the dentist has become more familiar to the child at that point. And
the child to the dentist.
And maybe the dentist has already given you some steps to make the child more familiar and to get used to the noises when that sort of thing. All these challenges that people often, when they have have face those challenges, they just give up, and then they go, oh, we're not going to take care of the dental thing. And so, of course, it's an emergency that's just some huge, expensive problem that leads you to the dentist, and then you have a terrible ordeal.
Okay, so this is AB 123.
AB 1231.
1231. And that entire bill is on our blog site, and we have the form letter there, and you can fill that out and email it to us, and we'll be happy to fax it to everybody on the list.
That's
really
right.
amazing.
It's been referred to 2 different committees, so there's a long list of assembly members on those committees who would get your letter of support.
And this is something that you can do today. Take that action, and you don't have to live in the state of California to talk about why you think that this is beneficial.
That's right.
I think we should take a break and then come back and talk about some of the other things on the list, because it's a long list.
Sounds great.
Okay. All right, so stick with us. More with Julie Kornack after these messages.
Every child with autism deserves a bright future.
Without further clarification, the Affordable Care Act could actually result in less benefits for individuals with autism spectrum disorders.
We urge Catherine Sebelius to clarify the Affordable Health Care Act.
She can make one change, one little minor change, to make applied behavioral analysis be part of the health care plan.
By signing this petition, you are protecting the health care benefits of individuals with autism spectrum disorders.
We need to make sure
that we are heard
and seen.
Sign a petition at autism-live.com.
Here's how you can show your infinite support. Create your own infinity ribbon. What you're going to do is take a ribbon that's been cut about 8 inches long, and you're going to grab one end and then twist it, and then take the 2 ends and join them together, and then tape it together. And then I'm going to flip it around and take another piece of tape, and what I have is double-sided sticky tape. Squeeze down. You have your very own infinity ribbon.
With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite.
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 With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite. With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite. Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Our very special guest here in the studio with us is Julie Kornack. She is an amazing, intelligent woman who is helping us to understand some of the legislation that is being looked at this year, that's in committee.
That's right.
That we hopefully will get an opportunity. Do we get to vote on these, or will these things that they will just
We
sign
don't
into
get to
law?
vote, but your vote is your letter of support.
Okay.
So your letter
your
of support,
representative knows
That's right.
how you feel.
Okay.
They want to see your support, and because when they get a lot, sometimes the opposition voices are the loudest, and we don't ever
Absolutely.
want those to be louder than our voices.
Absolutely. And reminding all of you that we have all of this information for you on our new blog. If you go to www.autism-live.com, click on the blog, you'll see that there are links to everything, including the form letter that you can send to us, and that we'll be happy to fax to everyone on the list that needs to get it for you.
So tell us about a couple more that you think are important.
So one is Senator Steinberg's Senate Bill 126, which is going to extend the autism mandate, which of course is important, and that'll extend it through July of 2019.
Okay.
And nothing has changed in that law. It's exactly what SB 946 was, which was the original mandate. So that's all it does is extend, but it's great to show your support for that.
So it extends what?
It extends the requirement that insurance companies provide
ABA coverage.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I just have a quick announcement to make. My son's insurance has been funded for his ABA for school and home therapy, and we just received word yesterday that it will be extended through October. And I have to tell you, I got down on my knees and cried, and then I wrote Doreen and said thank you for everything you and your employees at CARD have done to make this possible, because it was really a gift.
Of course, it is a gift.
Absolutely.
And
for so many people.
I would like to say that I can't wait for the day when it's no big deal when people get the services they need.
It's huge, though, for our families.
It's amazing. That's what we see in families' faces so often, and it's just a shame that there's so many hurdles to overcome to be where you're sitting right now, and to be able to have that gratitude. It would be great to not have to fight so hard.
Congratulations.
But good for you.
Thanks.
So that's definitely, obviously, I think we all support SB 126.
Absolutely.
And that's sort of an easy one. One that a lot of people might be interested in is SB 163, and that's the Senate Bill 163, that clarifies the role of regional centers when somebody does have private insurance to pay for ABA.
Okay.
A lot of you have experienced this shift from regional center services to privately funded insurance services. And suddenly you have these crazy co-pays.
Right.
And then you have to go to the regional centers and ask for help with the co-pays.
Right.
And it's almost as if they're making these decisions on a case-by-case basis. And if you can give them enough flowers or compliment them enough or whatever it is, jump through as many hoops as possible, you'll get the co-pays that you need. So SB 163 clarifies the regional center role and states that they are to pay the co-pays.
Okay.
Awesome.
In the meantime, if you're having issues with that and you don't have the regional center, Act Today is funding co-pays. So
absolutely.
Please.
And actually, Nancy, we had a question that came in on the live feature. They want to know, how do I apply for an Act Today grant? How does the grant help? What's the age limit for the to apply for the grant?
Great question.
You can go on our website, act-today.org. You will go to the tab that says grant application. You will see all of the instructions there, and you apply for the treatment and care you feel your child wants and needs, and we pay the provider of services. So let's say you want your child to receive ABA therapy from CARD, then we pay CARD for that. If you want biomedical treatment or testing, we pay your provider of that. So
if you're applying for a grant for an iPad,
we provide the iPad and send it to the family.
Okay.
Yeah. So just go on act-today.org. If you have any questions, you can call 818-705-1625.
And is there an age limit?
There is not an age limit. I think it might be 21. I have to check on that.
Okay.
But we do provide therapy for older teens, and I think into maybe early 20s, I believe.
All right. Very good. Anything else before?
Well, that's just because you brought up the older teens, that sort of segues nicely into SB 577, which is Senator Pavley. She's one of our local senators, representatives here, and she is sponsoring a bill that would create a pilot program to help young adults with autism find employment, sustain employment, be trained for employment.
We need this bill to pass. We need this bill to pass. Something, Shannon, you and I have spent a lot of time with guests on this program. So many of our children are aging up. Before you know it, they're ready to go out in the world. And will they have the skills? Will they have the jobs? We need to create jobs. We need to create systems where employers can take on these kids and train them for jobs.
This would also, apparently there's a lot of state and federal resources that should incentivize employers, and they're not necessarily being accessed.
Okay, so we need to get that done. Very important bill. Which one was that again?
That is Senator Pavley's bill, and it's SB 577.
Okay. And there's 20 here. We don't have time to discuss all of them, but again, this list of Julie's there's a link to it on our website, on the blog site, www.autism-live.com. Go to the blog site.
If you like a bill, it doesn't have to even come from this list. If you like a bill, let your local representatives know that you like the bill. Let them hear that you support it, and it makes a difference.
Yeah, we hear time and time again that the people who work in the office, they have little tally sheets that they put the little marks, and that the representatives will come in and say, what are the numbers on this? Well, there's 32 in favor and 12 against, you know, and that they are supposed to be there representing us, so they pay attention to those things.
They pay attention to it, so let's be the loudest voice.
Absolutely. Okay, we thank you so much for the information.
Thank you for joining us
and endlessly.
Shedding light on what can often be a little bit overwhelming, anything to do with politics and bills, right?
Thank you for having me.
And we have a couple of business things
that we need to take care of.
to announce. Really quickly.
We had the fabulous story of Luke, the film. We had Alonzo Mayer and Nina Mayo and Nina Liedersdorf on.
Right.
And
Alonzo, who wrote and directed the film.
Yes, and Lou Taylor Pucci, the miraculous young actor who plays Luke. And we're happy to say that they have confirmed a theatrical release. They have a one-week theatrical run in LA and New York, and 15 other cities on the 5th of April. And it's going to be, I think that they can go on to...
they have a Facebook. They have a Facebook.
Yes.
You can go to Story of Luke on Facebook to get updated with that. We're hoping to be on the red carpet at the premiere. Beautiful film. And I know many of you have been writing in asking, when can I see this?
Right. So now you can find out. It's going to be all over, and it's also available on iTunes, major cable on-demand platforms, 18 cities screening theatrically, and they have an official site, thestoryofluke.com.
There you go.
Okay. One other thing we want to talk to everybody about is our Act Today for Military Families Run and Family Festival in San Diego. We would love to have everybody go on as a virtual participant. And by the way, the CARD team, Center for Autism and Related Disorders, CARD San Diego is on fire, man. They're on fire. They've got a great virtual team, and you can join a team, create a team, or register as an individual. You've still got time. We've got 2 weeks here. And Act Today for Military Families.Conterra.org. And the virtual participant fee is $25. And if you have any questions, you can write to info@act-today.org.
And again, this is a fabulous run. It's the main fundraiser for the division of Act Today that provides grants to military
families. It's our major fundraiser for that.
So if you, like so many of us, feel that it's inappropriate that our military families, who, when they are young men and women who are serving, who have a child on the autism spectrum, and they get less services than everyone else. And if you feel that that's wrong, this is a great way that you can support them.
And the run is actually, it's April 5th is the Saturday, right? I don't have my calendar.
I believe it's the 6th.
Oh, gosh. I hope we're not giving the wrong information.
No, it's the 6th.
The 6th. Is that a Saturday?
Yes, that's a Saturday.
I've got so many numbers in my head.
No, and I know that because I've had to plan my calendar.
All right,
it's the
good.
6th.
I'll be there for sure. I'll be running. So I'm running the same thing.
And the night before is the Story of Luke. Already, the April, the Autism Awareness Month is stacking up for me.
It's getting crowded. And then the walk's happening from Autism Speaks, right?
The Autism Speaks walk is happening on the 20th.
Okay, so I guess we'll be there too.
Yes, we'll be there as well.
Okay.
So lots of things going on, and lots of exciting stuff happening next week. Next week we're going to have Ariva Martin.
Ariva Martin from the Special Needs Network, which you do a lot of work with Ariva. She does a lot of legislative work.
And we've talked about her Tools for Transformation.
Tools for Transformation conference with the Legislative Breakfast, which I believe is open to the public. I attended that last year. Really, you can meet some of these great lawmakers that are supporting autism.
We're out of time, but we'll be back tomorrow with Autism Live. Same time, same bat channel. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me.
And make it a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.